How many maps are you planning to have on the competitive?
Well, a lot of people don't like the new ICEBOX map. I personally love it. I think it's great, but I think we have to focus on another thing. The ICEBOX map isn't the problem. The lack of variety of maps is. The limited map pool in Valorant has a hot topic since launch, though Riot Games has its sights set on adding 2 more maps to the mix, much sooner than you might have expected. Now, the earliest versions of Valorant launched with just 3 maps: Bind, Heaven, and Split. Split are for background players first became familiar with. Before long, the Ascent was introduced, and just days ago, ICEBOX was also added in. Given early criticism of the map pool, Riot pivoted its development plans. Rather than focusing on various other content, map design became a top priority. Creating good maps is actually really hard. Just weeks later, game director Joe Zigler has now echoed this sentiment. With 5 maps in the game, it appears Riot isn't content just yet. In fact, the next 2 maps have been accelerated, so they have been basically boosted up in order to flesh out variety maps of maps sooner than later. So that means we're maybe getting a few more maps than we might have expected. And why exactly is that? Well, Joe Zigler actually wants to add at least 7 maps into Valorant. And why is that? Why would you want to add 7 maps? That's what makes best of 5s great. You don't have to repeat any map when playing best of 5s, and it also, in competitive, it makes for some great games with diversity. I think that's pretty much great, and that's exactly what we need. We didn't have enough maps right now, we'll be first to admit it, Ziegler told pro player Zigler Mixwell Interview. I hope I spelled that correctly again, I'm not exactly sure. However, Riot is trying to accelerate the next few maps. This means that the original schedule has been overhauled so that Valorant can keep up with the community demand. It looks like they're focusing on making more maps right now. There's players been reporting that the ICEBOX maps actually sucks, but I think it's actually a great map, one of my favorites so far, if you have the right team. If you use the smokes correctly, if you know how to defend, attack, you can definitely use it to your advantage. It makes the map more intense, and it doesn't provide any layers of safety. You can just get flanked around if you don't have a killjoy turret or an enemy over there, and flanking makes it so much easier. You know, I don't think it's actually the problem that the map isn't good. I think there's a lacking variety, because some people will love the map, some people will basically hate the map. But what they said is Riot is trying to accelerate the next few maps, which means we could be getting them just a few months from now, maybe even close. I don't have confirmed reports, but we might be getting, you know, a map in the next update or so. That means in 2 months, 3 months for sure, because that's all they're focusing on right now. If they can make it for first strike, you know, or I don't know, I guess the first strike is already up, but after the first strike, tournaments are going to be coming up, and, you know, Riot has to prove itself. You know, we feel like getting to 7 is a good starting point, and I definitely agree with that. And then you can add some bonus maps. I think going to 15 would make it great in the next 3 years. Reaching this number would establish a solid foundation to then consider a map pick ban system. Oh yeah, I would definitely love that, according to Ziegler. Once we get past that, we can begin really thinking if we're going to leave maps out of competitive map pool. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You shouldn't choose to play on specific maps at the moment, like in CSGO, because with 7 maps in the play, the competitive side of Valorant could benefit a great deal, okay? Best of 5 matchups could evade doubling on certain maps, not to mention the ranked playlist could see more strategy before agent lineups are even picked, and I think that would look great. Imagine if your team actually discusses what they should ban, like which map to ban, before actually picking agents. That would definitely provide more fun. So, you know, if there's a teammate that really doesn't know how to play on ICEBOX, that's fine, you can ban ICEBOX, and they ban, I don't know, Aston. Bam, you have 5 maps to choose from, right? Right now we're just sort of thinking about how we get to the point of having about 7, just to start off that conversation. Now, Ziegler didn't actually provide any further details on a specific timeline, because it's probably still in development and he can't talk anything about that, for 2 additional maps. With ICEBOX just only launching, however, they could still be ways off. You know, definitely keep your eyes peeled, guys, on this one.
How many maps are you planning to have on the competitive?
We haven't really determined yet because we don't have enough. Right now, we'll be the first to admit it. Right now, with releasing our fifth map, we have I think enough to run a BO5, but we don't have enough for some sort of level of strategic positioning of how many we have past that. We're trying to accelerate the next few maps because we feel like getting to 7 is a good starting point to now begin to think how many of these would we want to carry into a competitive map pool. And then once we get past that, we can begin really thinking if we're going to leave maps out of the competitive map pool, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
And so right now we're sort of thinking about how do we get to the point of having, about 7 to start off that conversation.
I don't know if you've seen that in Japan and some other in Korea as well. They have tournaments where they're ban agents. I don't know if you guys are planning on having that in the future, but it's really interesting because in NA and Europe we don't do that. And when I see it, they play a completely different game because if there's no cipher, for example, which is picked more than 90% of the games, you don't even know what's going on anymore. So
yeah, totally.
I don't know if that's going to be a thing in the future when we have more agents or something.
I think right now we're not doing that, but I think in the future we may think about it. It really depends on how much it adds to the game versus subtracts from the game, right? Like, is it more interesting to keep 0 bans and really have everybody think about who the other side is picking and who we want to pick to counter that, or who we want to pick to think about how to restrict that? Or is it better to think about how do we restrict the overall pool and make it so players have to adapt to the scenarios that they're in, basically from their meta choices? Those decisions I think are really hard to tell when we only have like 14 characters in the game. But as we're sort of going into the future, definitely as we get more characters, it's definitely going to be one of those conversation points where it's like, should we put in banning? Should we put in the way for our teams to really influence one another? Having said that, though, I think we're learning a lot from how they handle it right now in some of the Asian tournaments. So we're always thinking about new ways to trying to learn from those things to think about new ways to handle the scenes.
So Joe Zigler did give us some new information about the maps. Regardless of not, if you don't like the new ICEBOX, you will be getting more maps, and that's also great for the Valorant First Strike Tournament, Valorant Second Strike Tournament, and Valorant Third Strike Tournament, and all the Valorant tournaments in the future. I think this definitely helps making the competitive game even better than it is. I think it's actually, the game that has progress in 7 months is actually insane. If you've been playing since closed beta, it's been honestly amazing. And I definitely fully support them to full extent. Answers? How many maps we should be suspecting pretty much soon. If I was to guess, we were getting one December, January, somewhere around that time. And, new maps are gonna be just potentially coming in. And I have a special announcement today. Today, I hit Almost Immortal. I lost 11-13 on my rank up game. But what do you guys think of the new ICEBOX? What do you think of Sky? Let me know down in comments below. And see you tomorrow. I'm definitely expecting you guys on my other videos. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And anyway, this is Fatman. Sign out. Peace, guys.